So are you interested in moving from Texas to Michigan? Well, in this video, we want to give you a true comparison of Texas, different cities in Texas, compared to Michigan, including housing statistics, education, and more, so you can learn more about your move here to Michigan. Everything is bigger in Texas. I don't know if that's always the case, because you're watching this video, you're thinking about moving from Texas to Michigan. I think we have a lot to offer. My name is Matt Talbot. This is the Living in Detroit channel, and on this video, we want to compare Texas to Michigan. So if you're thinking about moving to or have to move from Texas to Michigan, we want to dive into some specifics so you can understand a little bit more on your move and to see if it's right for you. So first and foremost, we want to dive into some of the different populations, some of the different city-to-city populations, so you can get a better understanding of what that looks like. So the difference between Michigan and Texas population, if you look at Detroit population to Austin. Austin's probably my favorite city I've been to in Texas. I've done a good amount of traveling down there. I've been to Dallas a bunch of times, I've been to Houston a few times. I really do enjoy Austin in my travels there. To be fair, I've enjoyed Texas, having visited there for many, many years. However, I always will call Michigan home without a doubt. So population of Detroit, 632,000. Austin population, 964. So obviously Austin's a bigger city than Detroit, but I don't know, like, if you guys think about those differences, it's not that crazy different. When you're comparing the weather in Austin to Detroit, obviously that's a big one. Detroit averages 33 inches of snow. Austin averages, get ready, 0.3 inches of snow. Detroit has 33.5 inches of rain. Austin actually gets more rain at 34.9 inches of rain. July high in Austin is 95. Detroit is 83. And January low goes down to 18 degrees in January, and 38. And January in Austin is 38 degrees. Obviously, it's not a shocker. It's way more cold in Michigan than it is in Austin, Texas, without a doubt. The rain is interesting that Austin actually gets a little bit more rain overall, but we also have snowfall here in Michigan, which you don't down in Austin. Of course, what's interesting is a lot of the people that move up from Texas, they always say, like, you know, a lot of people are like, I can't deal with the cold, right? But then a lot of people that move here are like, I can't deal with the heat. And I get that, because although I love Texas and I love traveling to warm climates, I just feel like, you know, you should be allowed to go to work in like a bathing suit and like no shirt down there, because like it is so hot. I can't imagine like wearing like real clothes every day and actually working in a area like Texas. Every time I go, it's like I'm either inside or I have like shorts on and like a cutoff because it's so freaking hot down there. Up next, comparing the capitals of Texas compared to Michigan. Capital of Texas is Austin, Texas. For those of you who don't know, capital of Michigan is Lansing, Michigan. I think a lot of people across the country that didn't study geography well enough in school probably think Detroit's our capital, but Lansing, Michigan is the capital. It sits pretty much in the lower middle of the lower peninsula there. So that is our state capital. The population of Austin, 974,000. Population of Lansing, 112,000. Austin's also known for its hiking and biking trails, which I do agree with. Like, I love when I was in Austin, we walked down to the river, and you can walk down the river and people are jogging and hanging out. And then you can watch the bats fly out of the bridge and all that stuff. It's a cool little downtown area. Austin didn't have a professional sports team until 2021, and now they have the soccer team, which here in Detroit, we're out for you because we're building a new soccer stadium downtown. Soccer is very big in the city of Detroit. They're building a new soccer stadium, just got announced in 2024. I don't know when it's going to be done, but they bought this big piece of land. It's going to be a thing. Lansing is 85 miles from Detroit. Michigan's festive capital became the capital in 1867. So, like I said, Lansing sort of in the middle of the lower peninsula. East Lansing is where Michigan State University is, one of the biggest schools in the entire state. So, in my opinion, Lansing is our state capital, but it's almost more known here as, you know, in my opinion, a college town, right? Because it's like a Michigan State town. It's more of a college town, and then the state capital, at least from my eyes, maybe that's a little bit skewed. My sister actually worked there in a while in the Capitol building and stuff like that. So, or in the state capital, she went back and forth from Southeast Michigan to Lansing, which is quite the hike. But comparing the two, obviously Lansing is a smithereen city compared to Austin, Texas. Obviously, you could consider Austin as a college town as well too, with the University of Texas compared to Michigan State University. I don't know if that's like a true comparison because Austin's such a bigger city. There's so many more things happening. There's so many more skyscrapers, all that type of good stuff. So up next, comparing Detroit versus Houston. So Houston, Texas is a major city. 2.3 million people in Houston, Texas. That's quite quite the city. Has the Houston Zoo and home of the Houston Space Center. I enjoy visiting Houston. I've been there a couple times. Obviously, Detroit is a very small city comparatively, 620,000. We have Belle Isle and the Detroit Zoo, which is not in Detroit. It is in Oakland County, actually. But comparing Houston to Detroit, so obviously, again, it's just a bigger city. Houston is a much bigger city. Detroit is a smaller city as a whole. So when you're comparing a city like Detroit to Houston, obviously Houston's just, much, much bigger. It goes on for miles and miles and miles. Quite the city. Detroit as a whole, though, when you're thinking about moving to Michigan, if you are thinking about that part of Michigan, Detroit or Metro Detroit, there's really over 4 million people in that Southeast Michigan corridor just around Detroit itself. So although, Houston has 2.3 million people, if you drive a half hour, 45 minutes anywhere from the city of Detroit, you're really talking about 4 million plus people. So there's a lot more people than you think or what's on paper when you're comparing like Houston to Detroit, okay? Because when you start comparing the metropolitan areas and stuff like that, it is a pretty big metropolitan area without a doubt. Up next, we want to compare the music here in Michigan compared to Texas if you're moving to the area. Okay, comparing music in Texas compared to Michigan. This list is going to be fairly short, but Texas is home to live music capital of the U.S., has over 200 music venues in Austin. Obviously, Austin is rocking 6th Street, all this type of stuff. It's like sort of almost like a Nashville in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of music happening, a lot of live music. I love cities like that. But Michigan is definitely no slouch as a whole when it comes to different venues. They have 329 venues throughout the state. The big ones on our list here, the Fox, the Fillmore, Pine Knob, St. Andrews, all in Southeast Michigan. There's other big arenas across the state as well. One that comes to mind is Van Andel Arena. It's a big arena in Grand Rapids and throughout the state. I know we catch a lot of flack on this channel because a lot of times people are like, it's living in Detroit, but people were comparing Michigan. They're like, you don't talk enough about the other. So Van Andel Arena, you Grand Rapids people, we got you. Kalamazoo also has a lot of different venues. One of my favorite venues in the state is Bell's Brewery. Didn't you just get back from one of those? Did you like it? So Bell's sold to Anheuser-Busch a while ago, so it's not like corporate. But when I went to Western Michigan University, that's in Kalamazoo as well too, Bell's was there, and it was always kind of a good vibe, a good place to see a show, in my opinion. Smaller type venue, but I thought it was cool. There's a lot of different venues throughout Ann Arbor, Detroit. If you go to Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, throughout the state for sure. But Detroit has fantastic venues for seeing music, in my opinion. Up next, we're going to compare University of Michigan to the University of Texas. First and foremost is in-state tuition. So University of Michigan is more expensive than Texas. It's $15,000 compared to just under $12,000 in Texas. Out-of-state tuition, same rules apply. $53,000 at University of Michigan. Out-of-state tuition for Texas is just over $40,000. And this kind of makes sense why. The acceptance rate of U of M is 20% compared to the acceptance rate at University of Texas at 28%. So Michigan is a harder school to get into. There's also a lower student-to-teacher ratio at 12-1. Student-teacher ratio at Texas is 17-1. And then the graduation rate is also higher at University of Michigan at 90% compared to Texas at 81%. So on paper, I would say like U of M is a slightly better school. It's also slightly more expensive, but when you compare those two, things matter, okay? Texas obviously has a lot going on. There's a lot, if you compare the huge state of Texas, all the different big cities, big metropolitan areas, I'm sure there's a plethora of different schools to go to throughout the state. In Michigan, same thing. You have, like I said earlier in this video, Michigan State University, you have University of Michigan, Wayne State University in Detroit. There's a lot of big universities throughout the state of Michigan and also a lot of community colleges and smaller schools as well too. I'm sure Texas has the same thing. Up next, housing statistics. We're going to compare the true differences in the housing statistics when you compare Michigan compared to Texas. Up next. Okay, housing. So again, on our channel, we like to talk about housing on a particular basis because we are real estate agents. We do help people move here to Michigan all the time. We don't like to pitch you too much, but if that is you, if you're thinking about moving from Texas to Michigan or really anywhere, either in-state or out-of-state here in Michigan, let us know. Fill out our Calendly link on YouTube. You go to the main page, click the link, pops up my calendar. You can set an appointment on my calendar or someone on my team's calendar ASAP so we can chat with you about that. But getting into the housing statistics, average home price in Michigan is hovering around $300,000 right now. And the average home price in Texas is actually $330,000, and the median's even higher, $370,000. So people always talk about, it's just like the houses are so expensive in Michigan, and Texas are so much less expensive. Actually, as an average, they are not. Okay, median sale price for condos is $249,000. We don't have that statistic. That's in Michigan. We don't have the statistic for Texas. Average days on market in Michigan is 33 days. In Texas right now, the days on market is 60 as a whole. That's what we're seeing, at least according to our data. So homes in Michigan are selling significantly faster than homes in Texas. And I think we're kind of seeing that across the board. Obviously, it's a big comparison. It depends on where in Michigan, where in Texas. I know there's a lot of new construction in Texas. I think parts of Texas might be even being overly built, where there's too many new construction options. I think that's one of the reasons why things are taking a little bit longer. Inventory in Michigan here is down 13.2%. It's like the lowest it's been in a very, very long time, like we talk about a lot in this channel. And the months of supply in Michigan as a whole is 1.9 months of supply, and in Texas is 5 months of supply. So you literally have 2.5 times the amount of supply as far as the turnover rate of houses in Michigan compared to Texas. So there's a lot more inventory. The market's not going to move nearly as fast in Texas as it is in Michigan, so that matters, right? Another important statistic is price per square foot, 183 compared to 175 in Texas. So the houses are probably a little bit bigger, a little bit less expensive price per square foot. They're more expensive here in Michigan. I think a lot of people might think when they're moving from Texas to Michigan that, the market is similar to Texas, and it's not, in my opinion, as a macro, okay? Homes are selling a little bit faster here. Homes are, as a whole, a little bit less expensive, but they're selling quicker. I think the market in a lot of the sought-out areas in Michigan are still going to move very, very fast compared to places in Texas. Again, there's specifics. There's a lot of different cities in Texas. There's a lot of different cities in Michigan, of course, but I think as a whole, they're selling faster here in Michigan. Now, one thing to consider, the thing that blows my mind with social media and stuff like that, is I do know if you're in a little bit more rural Texas, you're outside of the city limits a little bit more, and you are looking at a lot of those new construction options, they are building really nice, beautiful houses for a little bit less money than you do get more house in those more rural areas in Texas than Michigan. A lot of times I think people see like, okay, $450,000 gets me this new build. It's 2,800 square feet. It's got all these nice features, all the nice bells and whistles. But I'm out, kind of in the boonies in Texas, and I want to move to Birmingham, Michigan, or I want to move to Ann Arbor, Michigan, or I want to move to Rochester, Michigan, right? And they're like, wow, you don't get nearly as much house, and that's because these areas are more established. They've been here for a long time. They've been very sought out areas for a long time. So there is less new construction as a whole here in Michigan. So I think if you are rural Texas, you're gonna get more house. And so if you're kind of going from rural Texas to one of these more sought out areas, don't expect to get the same beautiful 4,000 square foot house like for like. It's not going to happen that way. There is some differences, but there's differences in Michigan and Texas as a whole. So that's kind of part of the gig. If you need specifics on that, let us know. Send us a DM, shoot me an email, whatever you want to do. We can talk about kind of what city you're in, what your current setup looks like, and how much house you get here in comparison. That might be a big data point for a lot of people. So we have a list of some things to do, some places to eat, all that type of stuff, right? I think that kind of goes without saying. We don't really need a deep dive. It's hard to compare, entire state to an entire state. One thing I can tell you is that here in Michigan, there are a lot of outdoor activities, right? You can go up north. We have a lot more lakes in Michigan compared to Texas. And the way that I envision it, just as a person living in the area and having spent a lot of time in both states, is Texas is a lot more flat. There's a lot more sunshine, but it's flat and sort of spread out, of course. And here in Michigan, there's a lot more trees, a lot more rolling hills, a lot more greenery, in my opinion, in Michigan. So one of the reasons why people want to move to Michigan, whether it's Southeast Michigan, the west side of the state, if they want to really head up north or to the UP and actually live there or just visit there, is you have this type of landscape, you have this greenery. It's a very beautiful place. You have a lot of seasons throughout the year, and that's the benefit of living in Michigan. It feels like home to me because it is home to me, but I think a lot of people move here and they feel that home vibe because you have the seasons. There's a lot of different things happening. There's a lot of places to travel, a lot of places to visit throughout the state of Michigan. And so, yes, when you compare city to city, Texas is much bigger. A lot of people are moving there. I get the whole gig, right? But when you compare Michigan as a whole and what I truly know about it compared to Texas as a whole, which I have a pretty good understanding, there's a lot of benefits in both places without a doubt. But Michigan has a very, very home vibe and a lot of different outdoor activities as a lot of people moving from Texas I know look for. I know there's a lot of hunting down there and stuff like that. And so you get some of that here in Michigan without a doubt. If you're moving from one particular area to another here in Michigan, let us know. We can do another comparison for you. And like I said, if you're thinking about moving really in the next 6 to 12 months, comment below or hit our calendar link here on YouTube. Set up a consultation today. It's never a bad time to start conversations with a good real estate agent if you're thinking about moving to the area. My name is Matt Talbot. The team is the Talbot team. This is the Living in Detroit channel.